All right, we're on. I'm Ben Olvera.
Oh, are you doing an intro first, or are we starting with
Oh,
that?
sorry. Were you gonna? Do you want to do the intro, or do you want me to do it?
You can do the intro.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah, just give a little summary.
Okay,
I don't care.
welcome.
Yeah, I think it
Sounds good. Okay.
flows. Do
No, you're
whatever
fine.
you want. It
You're
doesn't
fine.
matter.
I'll do it. I'll do it. Okay. Welcome to episode 9 of 1530. This episode, we're going to be covering the exciting season of 2019, which Grand Slams are up for grabs, and if the young guns are ever going to break through. So we'll be discussing that and the very exciting season of 2019. If Federer, Nadal going to keep winning, the return of Djokovic, who knows? My name is Ben Olvera.
I'm Matt Smith. We're just two guys on opposite sides of America, two big tennis fans.
Awesome. So we have the stat of the day. This week's stat of the day is focusing on the first serve percentage, specifically with the top 10 in the ATP. So on breakpoint, they averaged, or excuse me, the overall first serve percentage was around 63.5% on their first serves in 2018. But when the pressure kind of built and they were at a break point, the top 10 only managed to make 60% of their break points. So about a 3.2 percentage point drop. The only two players that were kind of exempt from this trend in the top 10 were Nadal and Cilic. Nadal made 65.8% of his first serves in the season and actually elevated that during break points to 69.8%. Cilic was the only other player who posted a gain. It's a lot more negligible. It's only about 0.6% increase. So moral of the story, if you're on break point and you're serving and you're Nadal, that's not necessarily a bad place for you to be, and to a lesser extent, Cilic. So those guys are pretty clutch, and you saw that throughout 2018. So like I said, we're going to go through kind of recapping a little bit of 2018, what happened, and also what do we have to look forward to, and kind of make some predictions. So also to talk about the breakthrough players, we wanted to cover the most upsets that were scored in 2018. The most upsets were all three were young guns. One was Daniil Medvedev, the Russian. He had 19 upsets. Tsitsipas closely behind him with 18. And Alex de Minaur, the Australian, with 17. So these young players, we always talk about them, but they are knocking at the door and scoring many upsets. So let's just go ahead and open it up, Matt. Who are going to be winning Grand Slams in 2019?
Hopefully Nadal. Just joking.
Probably.
Probably. Maybe the French. No, I don't know. I think this might be the year. It might be the year that the Big Four kind of finally fall apart. I think Djok had a good comeback this year, and he'll definitely be a force, but I think there's going to be a lot more competition. Of course, we've said that, every year now for the last decade, but I think this might actually be the year that something actually happens. So.
Yeah, I agree. You can start to see some cracks in the armor with the Big Four, like you're saying. Even though Djokovic is good, all it takes is for him, just to get upset, and then I think the tournaments become kind of wide open. Federer was good the first half of the year. Second half of the year, he was kind of invisible. Nadal struggled with injuries. Besides the French, wasn't that much of a factor in the slams. Unfortunately, he made it far, but lost in the semis in both Wimbledon and the U.S. Open. So for me, I'll go ahead and be bold and jump out here some numbers. So I'm just going to assume this is best case for Djokovic. But I think with him being the favorite, I can even give him 2 slams. And that's quite a bit of slams, obviously, because, like we said, just one upset, and maybe that goes down to 1. I'll give Federer maybe a half a slam. I know that's weird to put it in halves, but he's usually always one of the favorites going into Wimbledon. But, of course, the health has to be there, and obviously he's probably going to need a good draw. He also has been the Australian Open defending champ past 2 years in a row. So we'll see if he can do that. Usually the Australian Open has been won by the Big Four just because you're able to be fresh. They're injury-free, and so they're usually very focused. So usually the top guys, the favorites, end up winning the Aussie. It's the slams later in the season where it's hard to maintain the level. So I'll give Fed a half of a slam. I'll give Nadal like 0.8 slams because the French is basically his baby. He's going to win the French. But if he doesn't win the French, I think it's pretty wide open. I don't think it's necessarily a given for Djokovic. I think more team or maybe some of the other young guns. So I think, like you're saying, we can start to see the cracks in the armor. We don't have a strong Wawrinka right now. and he's been the other one besides the big four snatching up slams. And Murray, we haven't seen him be very good. We'll see. I mean, Australian Open will give us a good insight, but like you're saying, I think we could see somebody else win a slam this year besides the big four.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think between Rafa and Fed, just to jump in real fast on those numbers, you look at Rafa obviously being dominant on clay and Fed dominant on grass, but of that dominance, I think Rafa has a greater dominance in France than Federer in England. As far as competition goes and things, I think that'll be interesting to see. I also think you're right. Injuries are going to play another factor this year. And I think they're going to hit everybody, even Djokovic. It'll be interesting to see what they all decided to play and not play. I think that'll change up a lot of the possibilities here in the four slams this year.
Right. Yeah, because I mean, Federer still hasn't said if he's going to win or even try to go in the clay season. Not that he'd be the favorite in the French, anyways. But yeah, I agree. The big four are going to have to start picking and choosing tournaments if they want to extend their careers. And we've already started to see that with Murray obviously being injured, Federer, and we'll see if Nadal and Djokovic follow suit. So now to get more specific, we kind of mentioned a little bit, but which slams are the most wide open? If you had to say, put money, okay, this Grand Slam, someone else besides the big four is going to win it, which slams do you think are the most wide open and why?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've touched on this a little bit, but I would definitely say the U.S. Open, right? At that point, Rafa has bowed out, I think the last 2 years. Is always struggling with injuries at that point. Everybody's a little bit more tired. And so it lets these kids that have a little more stamina, these Zverev team, de Minaur, Khachanov, all these kids to maybe break through because everybody else is too old. So they're too tired. So I think of all of them, U.S. Open is probably the biggest chance.
Yep, I agree with one exception, though. I think if it's going to be a young gun winning and they're going to win a slam in 2019, I think it's going to be the French because, like I said, if Nadal goes down, it's pretty much wide open. And you have a lot of these young players' team has been exceptional on clay. Even Zverev has won some Masters 1000s on clay. So I think that one becomes wide open. I don't think Djokovic is the favorite. And also the big thing is the serves. I know sometimes the young players, they just don't quite have the game that they need to compete, even against a Cilic or an Isner or an Anderson. Now, we've seen Anderson. He's made Wimbledon final, a U.S. Open final. He's been knocking on the door. And so I think I agree U.S. Open is probably more wide open, but I think that favors more the over 30 crowd that's non-Big Four. Like I said, the Cilic, the Delpos, the people who have been making finals at the U.S. Open the past couple years. They haven't won it, but they've been close. As great as it would be for a young gun to win the U.S. Open, they're going to have to really break these big servers, and they haven't shown they can do that. But I think if you want to bet on a player under 21, under 24, I guess, because team would be a big favorite, I would go with the French. And then also just a note on Wimbledon, we got to talk to the Aussie Open being tougher to win. Djokovic has ruled there, and Federer to a lesser extent now. But Wimbledon, same thing. It's usually been Federer or Djokovic winning Wimbledon. The rallies are shorter. You need that smart serving. It kind of favors the veterans. Kind of similar to the U.S. Open, why I think the older crowd is going to go further there. It doesn't really scream upset, though big servers can go far. So, I mean, Zverev, if he elevates his game, he can go far. But usually, like I said, it's Anderson, Cilic. But I personally think Federer or Djokovic will win it this year if I had to pick if they're healthy.
Yeah, that'll be interesting to see because didn't Zverev pick up Lindell? I feel like he's got that old school feel. So it would be, and I know he's been working on his serve and volleying.
Yes.
So that'll be interesting to see if Alex can put some competition into Wimbledon to say, hey, look, I've got some experience here now and some practice, and maybe he can pick up that style and compete as well. Right.
And then just to the point about that there's other hungry guys like these Cilic, Delpo. If you look at the four slams in 2018, of course, I'm using past results to predict future events. Not always the best thing, but just go with me here. So out of all the finalists, so we know who won the slams, right? It was Federer, Australian, Nadal, French, and then Djokovic cleaned up the rest of the year with Wimbledon, U.S. Open. But who did they face in the finals, right? Who was it that was last standing besides the big four? It was Cilic in Australia. it was Dominic Thiem in Paris. And then in Wimbledon, it was Anderson, of course, a hobbled Anderson because of that amazing semifinal against John Isner, and then Del Potro in the U.S. Open. So 3 out of the 4 finalists were these older, over 30, really big serving, really big games. Only Thiem was he was the only young gun to make a final. So that's the other part of it, right? Even to get into a final, to make a final is pretty tough. And you have the nerves at your maiden slam final. I think these guys who have had experience going to finals, they're more likely to win in 2019 than the young guns. I agree we will see more young guns in semifinals, going deeper into slams. But I do think it's just going to be hard. The Big Four is still not completely gone, and then you have these other guys who have been knocking at the door. And they've won slams before, right? Cilic has won one, Delpo's won one, Anderson not quite, but they're there.
Yeah, no, that's a good point, and you're obviously right. The veterans have shown that they've got a little bit more steel when it comes to going deep and holding things together. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I still think that, yeah, like you said, you're going to see more deeper runs. I think that this year of all the years, there's probably a better chance of a young gun finally breaking through than any others we've seen. So, but yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I just think these veterans are finally getting to a point where they're like, well, we've reached the farthest point that we can reach. I mean, Anderson has found a way in the last year and two to really up his game. I mean, he's been playing incredible, but I think there finally comes a point where they're like, well, I finally hit my max. Now there's only one way to go from there, and I think these young guns are still just tapping into their potential. So it'll be interesting.
So based on that, who do you think is more likely? We'll just go on record. Who's more likely to win a slam in 2019? The young guns. I'll give some names here. Sasha Zverev, as we've been talking about, Tsitsipas, Alex de Minaur, Dominic Thiem, Coric, Khachanov. Those are young guns. Or the non-Big Four over 30, like I've been saying, Cilic, Anderson, Isner, Delpo, maybe even a Stan if you throw him in there. Who do you think is more likely?
I got to stick with the young guns. I think this is their year. I think it's happening.
All right. The young guns. You've heard it from Matt. 2019. Young guns likely to win one. I'm gonna go with the veterans over 30. I still feel like Cilic might have another slam in them, maybe a Delpo, and obviously it'd be cool to see an Anderson or Isner to win their maiden slam. And I already gave those reasons why they were finalists. Okay, so transition a little bit. Nick Kyrgios, he's been the enigma of the tennis game, right? He has the most talent. Some would say, John McEnroe recently said he has more talent than Nadal and Federer. Some ways maybe that's true, some ways not, but he really hasn't been able to. But he's upset many of these players. He seems like he has the game to play against the top guys. He has a 2-0 head-to-head against Djokovic, 2-3 against Nadal, 1-3 against Federer. So he clearly brings the game when he has to, but he doesn't really go deep into majors. And he seems like he loses those everyday matches, or he's injured is the other thing. So fact or fiction, Nick Kyrgios is finished. We're not going to see Nick Kyrgios do any better than he's done.
Fact.
What do you think? Okay.
Yeah, undoubtedly a fact. It comes down to a work ethic, right? I mean, these people are playing at such a level that if you do not have an ethic, you're not going to compete. And I don't think that he does that. I think the major part of the reason that he's always injured is because he doesn't put the time in. And at the end of the day, he just doesn't care. He doesn't, and that's why he can't get past the most basic games. Sure, he'll get up for the Big Four or get up for a big game, but he doesn't get to those points because he can't take care of the normal everyday business. I think he's done.
Okay. I'm going to go fiction on that, but I don't think you're far off. I still think when he's healthy, he's a great player, and maybe he will actually follow through and get a coach like he says he will that will help him to whip into shape. I agree, though. The work ethic needs to be there. Some of the showboating is fun, but the shot selection sometimes just isn't there. You do tweeners that get put away instead of going for the smart shot. He's had so many big upsets. I feel like there's potential there, but I agree the window's closing. If he's going to do something, and I don't know if it's winning a slam anymore, like people have said, but maybe just winning a Masters 1000 or going deep into slams, because these other young guns who are younger than him, basically he's not the only super talent anymore, right? And he's not young anymore. I remember when he upset Nadal Wimbledon 2014. That's when he was young, 18. Now he's 23. which in tennis, that's starting to be the point where you should have things figured out because your peak is probably coming soon if you're not a Nadal, Federer, etc. So I don't think his window's gone, but it's closing very quickly. Okay, fact or fiction? Sasha Zverev is the best shot for a young gun to win a slam in 2019.
I got to go with fact again on that one. Yep. He's coming off that World Tour final win. I think he's going to ride that with his new coach into some serious success. You already heard me talk about how I think the young guns have a chance this year. I think the hopes ride on Zverev. Okay. He's the flag bearer, the standard bearer there. And so, when I say the young guns, I mean, I think that he, of anybody in that age group, has a chance to win. If he doesn't, then I don't think anybody else really does in that age group.
I'll go faction on it, the little in between.
Faction.
Faction. So I agree.
Offense on every one of these men.
I feel like I haven't been. No, so here with Sasha, he really has had the most results, right? He has 3 Masters 1000s to his name. He's beaten impressive people, Nadal, Djokovic. He's beating these top guys and won World Tour finals, right? That is amazing in and of itself. That's right. That's higher than a Masters 1000, not quite a slam. He beat Federer and Djokovic en route. You can't get better than that, right? He has Murray's ex-super coach, like you said, Lendl. And Lendl seemed to really help him in the World Tour finals. He was serving incredibly. And he seems to be doing better on the mental side of his game. But the problem is he just hasn't gone deep in slams yet, right? He hasn't made a semifinal yet. And I agree. I think that'll change this year. But to put all the young guns' hopes on someone who hasn't gone very deep in a slam, I don't think is necessarily that wise. I feel like even Tsitsipas going to the 4th round of Wimbledon, now it's one of the first slams that he's gone to, he went pretty deep already. So I feel like maybe he'll go further. So like I said, I like Zverev as a talent. I feel like he's ready to break through in a slam. But same thing kind of with the Kyrgios on a lesser extent. Some of those matches that he should be winning, they go 5 sets, and then he's tired the next match, and then he loses and you're like, how did he lose this match? He wasn't supposed to lose against this guy. So I think we're going to have to see the mental focus. And I think there's a lot of other players besides Zverev that can get it done. But I do agree he's probably the best shot.
Yeah, those are good points.
Okay, so I think we've already kind of said this. I'll go ahead and go on the record again, though. The young guns go slamless again in 2019. I'm going to go fact on that one. It's just hard because there's not enough slams to go around. Djokovic is going to get 2, probably at least 1. Like I said, Nadal gets probably 1, rounded up. Fed maybe 1, maybe a half. That leaves maybe 1 slam up for grabs. And like I said, I think that goes to the over 30 club, like I've been saying. But we'll see if we get multiple young guns to make finals of the slams. That's, I think, for me, is going to be a benchmark goal for them. They only had 1 guy last year be a finalist. Let's get that to 2 or 3. And then we'll see them literally knocking on the door, trying to take these slams from these guys. But the big 4, they're still hungry, man. That's the reality. They're not going to give up without a fight, obviously, and unless they're injured or just come out and have a really bad game.
Well, that's a good point. Those are good. I don't know. I think the non-Big 4 veterans, I think they're all big serves. You look at Isner, you look at Cilic, you look at Anderson. They base their game on the serve. I think that these kids are getting better at returning, and I don't know. I think it's their year. I'll go back to my fact on that one.
I'll give you one piece of ammo.
Fiction for it being slamless.
Yeah, I got you. Fiction. So I'll give you one piece of ammo for that. So Tsitsipas, for me, one of the best points of this season was when he went out and
Does your power go out? Because you're gone.